Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never believed a dance studio could hold anything terrifying. Dance was the one thing that kept me grounded, especially after I moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Redwood Springs, Colorado 6 months ago. I came here to escape the noise, the memories, and the constant weight of losing my mom last year. The first place I visited in town was Crescent Rhythm Dance Academy, a small but popular studio tucked between a bakery and a hardware shop. The owner, Ms. Carolyn Hensley, was warm, soft-spoken, and strangely excited when I mentioned I had experience in contemporary dance. "You'll fit perfectly in our advanced evening batch," she had said, her eyes lighting up more than necessary. I should have known something was off from that moment. My first day of class was normal. Well, mostly. There were about 12 students, all around my age. The floors were polished, the air smelled of lavender cleaner, and bright LED lights washed the place in a soft white glow. But Studio 4, everyone avoided even looking at it. It was at the end of the hallway, door always shut, glass window always covered with black curtains. The other studios had lights, music, laughter. Studio 4 felt like a sealed tomb. During a break, I asked a girl named Ava about it. Her smile fell instantly. "Just don't go near that room. Caroline doesn't let anyone use it anymore." "Why not?" I asked. Before she could answer, someone called her name, and she walked away. That night, something pulled me toward the end of the hallway. The door of Studio 4 was slightly open, like it was inviting me. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Inside Studio 4, the air was much colder. There were mirrors on every wall, floor to ceiling, except these mirrors looked old, fogged, scratched, almost like they had seen too much. When I stepped inside, my reflection didn't match my movement. I lifted my right hand. My reflection lifted its left. I froze. I blinked, and everything seemed normal again. "Must be my mind," I muttered and stepped backward. The floorboard under my shoe groaned like something alive. Just then I heard a whisper. "Stay!" I spun around. No one was there. The hall behind me was empty. I walked out quickly and shut the door. That night I barely slept. The next class was worse. While practicing across the main studio mirrors, I saw something disturbing. In my reflection, I was dancing in Studio 4, even though I was right there in Studio 1. I stumbled, nearly falling. Miss Caroline rushed over. "Are you all right?" "Did you see that?" I said, breath shaking. She frowned. "See what, dear?" Before I could explain, her expression changed from concern to that same unsettling excitement I saw the day we met. "Why don't you stay after class? I want to evaluate your technique." I didn't want to, but something about the way she asked made it impossible to refuse. The others left at 9 p.m. The hallway lights dimmed automatically. Ms. Caroline stood near Studio 4. "Come inside," she said softly. It felt less like an invitation and more like an order. Inside, the mirrors were darker than before, almost black glass. Caroline shut the door behind us. "Studio 4 is special," she whispered. "It shows your truest form. The dancer within your reflection is who you're meant to be, but it requires commitment." My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I caught sight of my reflection and gasped. My reflection wasn't copying me. She stood still, head tilted, eyes hollow and lifeless. Then she smiled, a wide, unnatural, stretched smile. "Caroline," I whispered, "something is wrong with the mirror." She didn't even look at it. "It chose you. The studio has been waiting for someone like you." My reflection placed a palm on the mirror, and cracks spread like veins across the glass. The lights flickered violently. Caroline stepped back, not in fear but reverence. "Let it take your fear. Let it take your past." I shook my head. "No, open the door." Caroline didn't move. My reflection began pushing through the mirror, its surface bending outward like liquid metal. Its face was inches from mine. "Come with me." The voice wasn't from the reflection. It was inside my head. I screamed and rammed my shoulder into the door, but it didn't budge. Caroline whispered behind me, "If you leave now, it'll follow you forever." Mirrors are just doors, dear. Some of us are meant to cross to the other side. I look back. My reflection's hands burst through the mirror. Black, wet, cold. They wrapped around my wrist. I screamed again. I dropped to the floor, kicking, pulling, doing everything I could to break free. The reflection was unbelievably strong. The room grew darker. The mirrors showed distorted versions of me, falling, drowning, disappearing into darkness. I used my free hand to grab a metal ballet bar attached to the wall and slammed it against the reflection's arm. The mirror erupted, shards flying everywhere. A horrible, inhuman scream filled the room. The reflection vanished into black smoke. The grip on my wrist disappeared. Caroline rushed toward the broken mirror, crying, "No! You ruined it! You ruined everything!" I didn't wait. I bolted out the door and down the hallway, ignoring the glass cutting my palms and arms. I ran out of the academy and didn't stop until I reached my apartment. That night, I covered every mirror in my home. I couldn't shake the sound of that scream. Couldn't shake the image of that distorted smile. The next morning, police cars surrounded Crescent Rhythm Dance Academy. Ava texted me that Ms. Caroline had been taken away, muttering nonsense about the chosen dancer and mirrors that breathe. The police sealed Studio 4. But I knew that didn't mean it was gone. 2 nights later, when I finally dared to uncover the mirror in my bedroom, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. My reflection had a thin cut across her wrist, the same place the reflection had grabbed me. And while I stood still, she slowly lifted her hand and waved at me. I backed away until I hit the wall. My reflection stopped waving. Then she mouthed a single word. "Soon." The mirror rattled violently. I grabbed a bedsheet and threw it over the glass. I don't know what Caroline awakened. I don't know why the mirror chose me. But I know this. Mirrors aren't just mirrors. Some show more than reflections. Some show the things waiting on the other side. And some don't want to stay behind the glass anymore. Story 2. I never believed a dance studio could hold memories darker than the mirrors lining its walls. But the night I joined Studio 47 in Cleveland, Ohio, everything in my life changed. My name is Elena Brooks, a 23-year-old dancer who grew up on worn-out hardwood floors and the echo of my mother's encouragement. After she passed away last year in a hit and run, dance became the only way I could breathe without feeling like the world was collapsing on me. Studio 47 wasn't famous. Not anymore. People said the place used to be alive years ago under its old instructor, Ms. Diane Keller. But after a tragedy no one explained clearly, the building stayed abandoned for years. Recently, a new instructor bought it, Mr. Isaac Rowan, a quiet man with an unnerving calmness. When I walked into the first class, the studio smelled faintly of old varnish and something metallic, like dried blood. I brushed it off, thinking it was my nerves. That was my first mistake. There were only 4 other dancers. Maya, a cheerful college student, Bridget, a single mom trying to find herself again, Adrian, the only guy in the class, serious and competitive, and Lila, the quiet girl who always lingered near the mirrors as if listening to something inside them. The class started normally, warm-ups, stretching, across-the-floor drills, but I couldn't ignore how unusually cold the room was. My breath fogged in front of me, even though the thermostat read 73 degrees Fahrenheit. While practicing pirouettes, I saw something move in the mirror behind me. Not someone. Something. A shadowy figure slid across the reflection, a tall silhouette with limbs too long, as if stretched by invisible strings. I spun around. No one was there. Mr. Rowan clapped once sharply. "Focus on your form, Elena. Distractions break dancers." His voice didn't sound irritated, just knowing. That evening after class, I stayed behind to practice. Studio 47 had this strange pull, as if the room wanted me to stay longer. Everyone else left except Lila, who stood frozen in front of the mirror. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked softly. Her eyes didn't blink. "Elena." The mirror breathes. A chill shot up my spine. Before I could speak, she grabbed my wrist. Her hand was ice cold. "They don't want the routine to end. They don't want us to leave." I slowly backed away. "Who?" Her pupils widened, swallowing the whites of her eyes. the dancers before us. I turned to run, but she whispered one last thing. Don't let the mirror take you. It took Ms. Keller. My blood went cold. That was the first night I dreamed of the figure. It wasn't a nightmare. It was too vivid. The shadow danced with me, its fingers brushing my spine, making me feel paralyzed and weightless, like I wasn't fully inside my own body. The next day, class felt off. Everyone looked sleep-deprived. Adrian complained about hearing tapping on his window at night. Maya said she saw footprints in her hallway that weren't hers. Bridget looked pale, like she hadn't eaten in days. Mr. Rowan walked in, wearing a black turtleneck and gloves, even though it wasn't cold. His eyes scanned us one by one, and for a moment, I swear his irises flickered dark, like ink dripping across water. We'll learn a new routine tonight, he said, one Ms. Keller created before she died. We started dancing, but the choreography felt wrong. The counts were uneven. Steps twisted unnaturally, like the movements belonged to a body that wasn't human. Halfway through, Maya suddenly screamed. We froze. Her leg jerked backward violently, like something had grabbed it. She was dragged across the floor, nails scratching hardwood, leaving long, desperate marks. We all ran toward her, but the moment we reached her, she stopped sliding. Mr. Rowan didn't move at all. He simply watched. Studio 47 pushes dancers to their limits, he said calmly. No one argued, but all of us felt it. We should have left that night. Over the next week, things became worse. The mirrors started fogging on their own, even when the room was warm. Words appeared in the condensation, stay dance with us. One of you is next. Lila stopped coming to class. When I called her, a distorted voice answered. It sounded like someone speaking through water. She's practicing inside now. I hung up, heart pounding. One evening I returned to the studio early. The lights were off, but I heard music playing, old ballet music from the 70s. It came from the mirror, not behind it, from inside it. The same faint metallic smell filled the air. When I walked closer, my reflection paused. I didn't. My reflection stared at me with a wide smile stretched unnaturally across its face. Elena, it whispered without moving lips. We've been waiting. I stumbled back, screaming. That was the night I knew Studio 47 wasn't haunted by simple ghosts. It was hungry. I tried to quit the class, but Mr. Rowan showed up at my apartment. I think you misunderstand something, he said, standing perfectly still in my doorway. Studio 47 chooses its dancers. You don't choose it. He placed a folded piece of paper in my hand. The choreography. The one that hurt Maya. The one that didn't feel human. You finish this routine, he said, and the studio will let you go. The next evening, somehow all of us returned. Maybe fear, maybe guilt, or maybe the studio had already gotten into our heads. Mr. Rowan locked the doors. Tonight, he said, is the final performance. Music began playing from no visible speaker. The mirrors darkened like liquid shadows. We danced, and the mirrors started pulling. Bridget was the first. Her reflection reached out, grabbed her by the throat, and yanked her inside the glass. Her scream echoed and dissolved into static. Adrian tried to break the mirror, but the glass melted like tar and swallowed his hand, then his arm, then all of him. Maya collapsed, crying, repeating, "Please let me go." But her reflection crawled out of the mirror like a spider and dragged her back into the darkness. I was the last one left. Mr. Rowan stepped toward me. You dance beautifully, he whispered, just like Miss Keller. That is why they want you. The studio survives by taking the most graceful. I backed away as the mirrors rippled like black water. No, I whispered, tears burning my eyes. I'm not dancing anymore. He grabbed my face with his gloved hand. You already have. The music grew louder. My body started moving against my will. Turns, jumps, extensions. Perfect, flawless, inhuman. The mirrors opened wide behind me, waiting like the mouth of a beast. But then I remembered Lila's warning. Don't let the mirror take you. I threw myself to the floor, breaking the forced motion. The reflection of me lunged, hitting the hardwood instead of my body. The mirror cracked. Screams erupted from inside. Hundreds of voices, some familiar, some ancient. Mr. Rowan shouted, "No!" I grabbed a fallen metal bar from the corner and smashed the largest mirror. Glass exploded everywhere. Darkness shrieked. Figures inside dissolved like smoke. The studio shook violently. Lights burst. The floor split. Mr. Rowan was dragged toward the broken mirror by invisible hands. "Help me!" he screamed. I didn't. He disappeared into the shards. I ran out of Studio 47 as the building collapsed behind me. Sirens filled the air. Neighbors must have heard the destruction. By the time firefighters arrived, the studio was reduced to rubble, and no one else was found inside. The news said it was an old foundation issue, but they didn't see what I saw. They didn't hear the dancers trapped behind the glass. It's been 6 months now. I stopped dancing. I moved to Chicago to start over. Sometimes in reflective windows or store mirrors, I see shadows behind my shoulder, stretching, reaching, performing the routine I refuse to finish. Last week, a small cracked mirror appeared on my doorstep with a note. "The studio misses you." I threw it away. But tonight, as I write this, I can hear music playing in my living room. The same music from Studio 47. And my reflection isn't standing where I am. It's closer, smiling, waiting. Story 3. I never believed that a dance studio, of all places, could hold the kind of darkness people whisper about in late-night campfire stories. But that changed the moment I stepped into Reynolds Street Dance Academy in Salem, Massachusetts. The night everything started to unravel. My name is Ava Callahan, 23 years old, born and raised in Boston. Dance wasn't just my escape. It was the one thing that pulled me out of a childhood full of arguments, empty promises, and long nights alone. My mother worked double shifts at a diner. My father left before I turned 8. Dance classes kept me sane. So when I moved to Salem for my new nursing job, I immediately searched for a late evening dance studio where I could keep myself grounded. That's when I found it. A small, old-fashioned building squeezed between an abandoned printing shop and a locksmith store. Reynolds Street Dance Academy, open 6 p.m. to midnight. Midnight, that should have been my first warning, but I brushed it off. I was desperate to dance again, desperate to feel normal. I entered the studio at 8:27 p.m., and the first thing that hit me was the silence. No music, no students. Just the rhythmic clicking of an old ceiling fan wobbling above. Behind the reception desk sat a woman with short black hair tied in a bun, so tight it looked painful. "Is this your first class?" she asked, her tone soft but oddly cold. "Yes, I'm Ava." She smiled, small, polite, and unsettlingly stiff. "I'm Ms. Delilah Crane. I run the night sessions here." Her eyes didn't blink much. Her voice didn't rise or fall. Everything about her felt rehearsed. "Is it usually this quiet?" I asked. She tilted her head. "We keep our nighttime classes small. More focus, less distraction." I nodded, though a shiver crawled down my spine without reason. The studio smelled faintly of lavender, mixed with something else, something metallic. Class began at 9 p.m. sharp. There were 3 other students. Liam, a tall, shy guy who barely made eye contact. Reese, a red-haired girl my age. Nora, a quiet woman who stretched obsessively as if warming up for a competition. We were told to stand in front of the gigantic mirror wall, floor to ceiling, spotless, too spotless. Ms. Crane walked slowly to the stereo, pressed play, and classical piano music filled the air. She moved with precision, every gesture sharp, every instruction crystal clear. For 30 minutes, everything felt normal, almost peaceful. Then it happened. Ms. Crane instructed us to repeat a sequence. 1, 2, pivot, extend, look to the mirror. I turned toward my reflection and froze, because my reflection wasn't doing what I was doing. My arm lifted a second later. My foot turned before I moved it. My eyes blinked when I didn't. I stumbled backward. "What the—" "Are you all right, Ava?" Ms. Crane asked, not turning to look at me. "My reflection. Did you see—" But when I looked again, the reflection was normal. Too normal. Reese whispered beside me. I saw it too. I glanced at her, but her face had gone pale, her pupils wide and trembling. Ms. Crane stopped the music abruptly. "That's enough for tonight. Class dismissed." It wasn't even 10 p.m. Her eyes lingered on me a second too long. We gathered our bags and left the dance floor, but as I walked past the mirror, I heard a whisper, clear, soft, coming from behind the glass. Don't stay. Leave before she chooses you. I jerked back. Who said that? I whispered. Reese stopped beside me. You heard it too? We exchanged a terrified look, but Miss Crane's shadow appeared in the hallway, and her voice hardened. Everything all right? Yeah, I lied. We left the studio fast. Outside, the night felt colder than usual. Reese touched my arm. Ava, if I were you, I wouldn't go back there. Then why do you keep coming? I asked. She looked down. Because she doesn't let everyone leave. That sentence would haunt me for days. I should have listened. I should have stayed home. But something pulled me back. Curiosity, stubbornness, maybe insanity. When I arrived on the second night, the studio door, usually unlocked, was half closed. Just enough for someone to watch from inside. I pushed it. It opened, but not easily. Scratch marks lined the doorframe. Deep ones, as if someone had tried to claw their way out, or in. Ms. Crane greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You came back. Should I not have? I challenged. She leaned closer. Once you begin dancing with us, breaking rhythm is dangerous. I didn't know what she meant, but her tone made my stomach twist. Inside, only Nora was there warming up. Her movements were jerky, frantic, like she was being controlled. Her eyes kept flicking to the mirror. We started the routine again. Same sequence, same eerie silence behind the music. And again, my reflection lagged, then hurried, then froze entirely while I kept moving. I gasped, stepping away. This time everyone saw it. Liam shouted, "Why isn't it moving with you?" Reese covered her mouth. Nora, who never spoke, whimpered and collapsed to the floor. Miss Crane didn't react. Instead, she whispered, "Finally." "What do you mean, finally?" I demanded. She walked toward me slowly. "You have what the others didn't. The mirror wants you." The mirror behind her rippled, like water disturbed by wind. I scrambled backward as a hand, pale, slender, and trembling, pressed against the glass from the inside. "No! No! No!" Reese screamed. Liam ran for the exit, but the studio door slammed shut on its own. Ms. Crane raised her hand, and the mirror cracked slightly, thin, web-like fractures spreading around the hand inside. Nora sobbed, "Please, don't make her go in." Miss Crane turned. "Silence!" And Nora's reflection grabbed her ankle, a real hand, from the mirror. Nora shrieked as she was yanked off her feet, dragged toward the glass. I grabbed her arms desperately. "Hold on!" Her nails dug into my wrists. The mirror glowed faintly, silver, alive, hungry. Ms. Crane watched calmly. Nora's body slid across the floor. "No! Ava, please!" I held tighter, but her reflection smiled at me, a horrifying grin, and pulled her inside. Just like that, Nora was gone. The mirror returned to stillness. My legs trembled violently. What are you?" I whispered at Ms. Crane. She smiled. "The mirror keeps the dancers it loves." We weren't allowed to leave. Ms. Crane locked the doors. "Sit," she commanded. We obeyed, trembling. She paced slowly. "This studio belonged to my grandmother. She was a dancer too, one who discovered that certain mirrors are not reflections, but windows." "Windows to what?" Liam whispered. "To a place that feeds on movement, on grace, on fear." Reese sobbed. "Let us go, please." Ms. Crane looked almost sympathetic. "I can't. Once the mirror chooses someone, it must take a dancer. If not you, it would choose one of your families instead." I felt my blood run cold. "So what now?" I asked. "You dance. One last time. And the mirror will decide whom it wants." Her words stabbed into my spine. At 11:59 p.m., she turned the lights low, leaving only the glow of the mirror to illuminate the room. "Begin," she whispered. The music was slow, haunting, a piano melody that sounded like a lullaby played backward. We danced, but this time our reflections didn't mimic us. They danced a different routine, faster, sharper, more violent. Reese tripped, but her reflection stayed perfectly balanced. Liam tried to run, but his reflection blocked his way inside the mirror. And my reflection? It stared directly at me the entire time, not blinking, not dancing, just staring. Ms. Crane's voice echoed, "Mirror, choose." The glass rippled. A cold gust swept through the studio. Liam screamed as ghostly hands wrapped around his torso. Reese clung to me, but the mirror ignored them. It only responded when my reflection stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. It placed its palm on the glass. The mirror glowed blue, and my body began drifting toward it without me moving a muscle. No! I fought invisible force pulling me. Reese grabbed my waist. Liam grabbed my arm. For a moment, just a moment, we held firm. But the mirror pulsed like a heartbeat, and the pull strengthened. I felt myself sliding across the floor. Then, Reese whispered, "I'm sorry." She let go. Liam let go. I was dragged forward. My reflection stepped aside. And something else, something faceless, tall and hollow, waited behind the glass. Its arms opened. I screamed. The mirror swallowed me whole, cold, silence, dark, no floor, no ceiling, just miles of glass reflecting endless distorted realities. Nora sat curled in a corner that wasn't a corner at all. Her voice cracked. "It doesn't let you die." My reflection stood in front of me, no longer tied to my movements. It whispered, "You dance for us now." I stumbled backward, but there was no space, no exits, just walls of mirrors and shadows moving inside them. Ms. Crane's voice echoed faintly through the glass, though she wasn't inside. "Ava, if you want to leave, offer the mirror another dancer." "No," I screamed, but she didn't care. "You choose, or stay forever." The shadows crept closer. Nora cried. My reflection extended its hand. People think choices define who we are. They don't. Choices reveal who we've always been. The mirror whispered, "Bring us someone, or become one of us." And in that moment of terror and desperation, I did something unforgivable. I whispered a name. Reese. The moment I said it, the mirror released me. I fell through the glass back into the studio, collapsing on the wooden floor. The door was open. The lights were off. Everyone was gone except Ms. Crane, who smiled softly. "It chose you to return," she said. "And Reese?" I gasped. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I moved away from Salem, started a new job, new apartment, new life. But sometimes at night I hear tapping, from mirrors, from windows, from the black screen of my phone. A soft whisper follows. "Ava, you promised." Because I didn't bring Reese to the mirror. It took her itself. And now, it wants another. I avoid mirrors now, cover them, break them, refuse them. But every reflection, shiny floors, car windows, even puddles, shows a figure behind me. My reflection, smiling, waiting, counting the days until the mirror calls again. And when it does, I know I won't be strong enough to resist. Story 4. I never thought a simple late evening dance class could ruin everything I believed about reality, or that one empty studio in a small American town could still haunt me every time I hear a mirror crack. My name is Ava Hartley, a 19-year-old from Springfield, Missouri, and dance has been the only thing in my life that ever made sense. I grew up in a rough home. My mom worked double shifts at a diner, and my dad walked out long before I learned how to pronounce pirouette. Dance kept me sane. It was structure, it was rhythm, it was escape. So when I got accepted into a weekend training program at Midwest Motion Arts Studio, I was thrilled. It wasn't fancy like the New York academies, but it had a reputation for tough instructors and intense technique drills. I thought joining would push me closer to the professional career I'd always wanted. I didn't know it would bring me closer to something else, something that watched me from the mirrors. It started on a Friday evening. The sky outside was the kind of orange-pink haze Missouri gets before the cold really hits. I arrived early, 6:42 p.m., because I wanted extra time to warm up. The receptionist, a girl named Molly, handed me a key card. "You're in Studio 5 tonight," she said with a strange hesitation. "They reopened it last month." I didn't think anything of it. Studios get renovated, repainted, whatever. I slid into Studio 5 and felt a strange chill. The air smelled like old wood varnish mixed with something metallic. The room was bigger than the others, with mirrors covering all four walls, making it look endless. I loved it instantly. I stretched for 10 minutes, alone, listening to my breath echo. But then something shifted. It felt like someone was behind me. I turned around, no one. But in the mirror behind me, I swore I saw a girl standing in the corner. Her silhouette was faint, like a shadow that hadn't fully formed. I blinked. She was gone. I laughed at myself, shook my head, and chalked it up to nerves. Class started. There were 8 of us, plus our instructor, Ms. Callahan, a former LA dancer who walked with the confidence of someone who'd survived every audition room in Hollywood. Everything went fine until we began across-the-floor routines. That's when I saw her again. The girl in the reflection. She was wearing an old-fashioned ballet leotard, faded gray, almost dusty, and her hair was tied in a bun so tight it looked painful. But the strangest part was her expression. She looked terrified, like she wanted to scream but couldn't. Every time I turned, she disappeared. Every time I faced the mirror, she was there. At water break, I asked Molly casually, "Hey, you guys have another girl who practices here, about my age. Gray leotard." Molly stopped typing. Her face turned pale. "No one uses Studio 5 except your group," she whispered. "No one." I pressed her. She refused to say more. Saturday was worse. We were running late that night. Everyone left by 9:30 p.m., but I, being the obsessive dancer I am, stayed an extra 20 minutes to practice turns. At exactly 9:47 p.m., I heard it. A sharp thud from behind the mirrors. Then another. Then a dragging sound. I froze mid-turn. The dragging grew louder, like fingernails scraping along a wall. I stepped closer to the mirror. My reflection looked nervous, breathing unevenly. But behind my reflection, in the dim mirrored world, I saw movement. Someone, no, something crawled across the floor on the other side of the glass. Its hands were bent wrong. Its legs moved like they were broken but still trying to dance. And then it looked up. The same girl, the same terrified eyes, but now she was reaching toward me, palm pressed against the inside of the mirror, as if begging me to help her escape. I ran out of the studio, heart slamming in my ribs. The next morning I confronted Ms. Callahan. "Something is wrong with Studio 5, I said. "I keep seeing this girl." She cut me off. "You're imagining things. Focus on your craft, Ava." But her eyes told a different story. Fear, avoidance, guilt. So during lunch break, I checked the studio's office archives. They kept old newspaper clippings framed on the wall, probably for nostalgia. One article stood out: "Local dancer found dead in studio accident, 2012. Name: Lily Warren, age 17. Location: Studio 5, Midwest Motion Arts." The photo made my chest tighten. It was the girl in the mirror. Her death was ruled an accident. She slipped, hit her head on the mirror, and bled out before help arrived. Except, the article mentioned one detail that made my hands shake. The mirror shattered inward. Not outward, inward, as if something had pulled her through. That evening, I refused to go back into Studio 5. But Miss Callahan insisted. "Fear is psychological," she said. "If you run from it, you feed it." By 8 p.m., we were all in Studio 5 again. The air felt heavier, almost humid despite the cold outside. During combination practice, I glanced at the mirror and saw Lily's face directly behind mine. No longer terrified. Now she looked angry, furious, like she wanted to take my place. The lights flickered, the speakers crackled, the temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. Then, the mirrors began to shake. Everyone screamed. Ms. Callahan yelled for us to get back, but the doors slammed shut on their own. We were trapped. Lily appeared in every reflection, 8 versions of her, each one slamming her palms against the mirror, harder and harder. Cracks spread across the glass like spiderwebs. The studio went pitch black. Only the mirrors glowed faintly, reflecting a world that wasn't ours. A darker version of the studio, where Lily stood staring at us, head tilted, neck unnaturally bent. She pointed at me. Then she smiled, a horrible, broken smile. Suddenly, I felt something cold grabbing my wrist. I looked down. A pale hand was reaching through the mirror, fingers wrapping around me. I screamed as it yanked, trying to pull me inside. The others dragged me back. Our instructor kicked at the mirror. When her foot connected, the entire studio erupted with a sound like hundreds of bones snapping at once. The hands vanished. The mirrors went dark, and the dragging sound faded. When the lights came back on, every single mirror in Studio 5 was cracked from top to bottom, but not broken, just cracked, like fragile ice. The owners closed Studio 5 the next morning, but for reasons I still don't understand, Miss Callahan asked me to meet her there alone that evening. "It's time you know the truth," she said. Her voice trembled. She confessed that Lily wasn't just a student, she was her daughter. Lily suffered from severe anxiety about performances. During one late-night rehearsal, she panicked during a routine, struck the mirror, and the glass gave way. "That's the story they printed," Ms. Callahan whispered, but I saw what really happened. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Lily was pulled in." The moment she said it, the room went silent. Then the mirrors, still cracked, began glowing again. Lily appeared, closer than ever, her face pressed against the glass, eyes filled with rage. Ms. Callahan sobbed, reaching toward her. The mirrors shattered outward. Glass flew everywhere. Lily stepped out. But she wasn't a girl anymore. She moved like a broken marionette, limbs jerking, toes scraping the floor. Her mouth opened far wider than humanly possible. She rushed at Ms. Callahan first. I won't describe what happened. I can still hear the sound. I ran. I didn't look back. But I heard Lily calling my name in a voice that wasn't hers. "Ava, stay, dance, with me." I escaped through the emergency exit and never returned. The studio shut down permanently 2 weeks later. Most of the mirrors were missing, as if something had taken them. Some nights, when I'm home alone in my apartment, I hear it again. That dragging sound, that faint tap on the mirror, that whisper saying my name. I've covered every mirror in my house. But sometimes in the dark reflection of a window, I see a faint silhouette of a girl in a gray leotard, waiting, calling me back, wanting me to finish the dance she never got to complete. I pray you never see her, because once you do, she never stops. Story 5, I never thought a simple decision to join a late-night dance class would ruin everything I knew about safety, trust, and reality itself. My name is Avery Collins, and until last fall, my life in Portland, Oregon was painfully normal. I worked a desk job at a software company, lived alone in a quiet apartment on North Flint Avenue, and spent most evenings scrolling my phone trying to convince myself I wasn't wasting my 20s. When my best friend Lila suggested I join a contemporary dance class at Northwood Art Studio, I agreed only because I desperately needed something new. But I should have known something was wrong the first night I stepped inside. The studio was old, too old for a place supposedly renovated 2 years ago. The wooden floors creaked under every step, mirrors were slightly foggy even though no one had danced yet, and a strange cold draft seeped from somewhere behind the walls as if someone had opened a freezer. Our instructor, Ms. Delaney Reese, was the kind of person you remembered instantly. Tall, rigid posture, jet black hair always tied into a perfect bun, and eyes so sharp it felt like she could slice you open without touching you. "Welcome to Northwood," she said that first day, her voice low and too calm. "Here, your body listens to the room. The room listens back." I didn't understand what she meant then. I wish I never did. The first week was normal enough. Warm-ups, stretches, choreography. Ms. Reese demanded perfection, but never raised her voice. The strange part wasn't her, it was the mirrors. They didn't reflect light normally. Sometimes when we danced, the reflection lagged by a second. Sometimes I saw figures behind us, moving even though the studio was empty. Once during a water break, I noticed Lila staring into the mirror with a confused expression. "You good?" I asked. She frowned. "Did you see that?" "See what?" "My reflection." It smiled before I did. A cold rush went through me, but I forced a laugh. "Maybe you're tired." But she wasn't tired, and I wasn't imagining things either. The second week, something else happened. After class, I stayed late to practice. Everyone left, except Ms. Reese. She stood near the mirror, watching me silently. I turned toward her. "Am I doing something wrong?" "Your body is learning," she said. But the mirror doesn't know you yet. That sentence made no sense, but the way she said it, like the mirror had a mind of its own, chilled me. Then the lights flickered, and for a moment, just a moment, my reflection wasn't me. It was me, but smiling too wide, too still, too wrong. When the lights came back, the reflection snapped into place. I ran out of the studio without packing my bag. Things escalated fast. Lila started skipping class. When I texted her, she replied with short answers. I'm not going back there. Something is wrong with that place. I don't feel like myself. I went to her apartment to check on her. She looked pale, eyes sunken, movement stiff. Are you sick? I asked. She just stared at me. Do you think mirrors should know your name? I stepped back. What? They whisper now, she said. Every time I look, they whisper my name. I got her out of the apartment for fresh air, but she moved like she didn't know how legs worked, like she was copying someone else's motion. That night, she stopped responding completely. The following evening, Ms. Reese texted me. Class attendance required, 8 p.m. sharp, bring Lila. I never gave her my number. I didn't reply. But at exactly 7:59 p.m., I heard knocking at my door. Not knocking, slamming. When I opened it, Lila stood there. Her eyes were empty, her face expressionless. We have class, she said in a dead voice. I didn't want to go, but something in the way she stared, like something inside her would rip through her skin if I said no, forced me to grab my keys. The studio looked darker than usual. The hallways lit only by emergency lights. The air felt thick, like breathing underwater. Inside the dance room, all mirrors were uncovered for the first time. Usually half of them stayed draped with black curtains for repairs, but tonight they were all exposed. Ms. Reese stood at the center, smiling faintly. Everyone is here, she said. Everyone, except there were only 5 students, but in the mirror there were 6. Form line, she instructed. When we got into position, something horrifying happened. The reflection didn't match our arrangement. The mirrored versions stood in different places, forming their own formation. Today, Ms. Reese said softly, we dance with them. My stomach dropped. Them? She tilted her head. Your counterparts. The studio mirrors store more than reflections. They store the dancers who never left. I felt the room tilt. What do you mean never left? I asked. Her eyes gleamed. Some routines consume the dancer. I grabbed Lila's hand. We're leaving. No, Miss Reese said. It has begun. The lights cut out. Only the mirrors glowed faintly, as if lit from inside. Our reflections stepped forward, without us moving. They came closer, matching our height, our faces, our clothes. But their eyes were pitch black. One by one, they reached out, touching the mirror surface, except the glass rippled like water. Lila screamed as her reflection grabbed her wrist from inside the mirror and began pulling. Help me, she cried. I grabbed her waist, trying to pull her back, but her reflection was impossibly strong. Its smile widened until the skin around its mouth tore. Stop, I yelled at Miss Reese. She didn't move. She simply observed like this was a routine rehearsal. The mirror chooses, she whispered. It always chooses. With a final jerk, Lila was pulled fully inside the mirror. Her body vanished. Her reflection stood alone on the other side, smiling calmly. I screamed until my throat tore. I ran to smash the mirror, but the surface hardened like steel. Let her go, I shouted. Ms. Reese slowly approached me. She is where dancers go when they fear the routine. Fear feeds the room. I'm calling the police. You won't make it to the door, she said coldly. And she was right. The reflections, the remaining ones, began stepping out of the mirror. Not copies now, more like twisted versions of us. Skin slightly off color, joints bending wrong, faces stretched like clay. They surrounded me. Dance, Ms. Reese commanded. My legs moved on their own. My arms twisted into positions I'd never learned. The reflection version of me watched with a smile as my body contorted unnaturally, as if invisible hands were pulling at my muscles. Pain shot through my spine. Something cracked. I collapsed to my knees. Why are you doing this? I gasped. Ms. Reese crouched beside me. Her eyes were no longer normal. They flickered like candle flames. This studio survived 40 years because it feeds on fear. I guide it. I keep it alive. And now, she traced something across my cheek. It wants you. I forced myself up despite the burning pain. Behind me, the reflections waited, heads tilted, waiting for some silent command. But I remembered something. On the first day, Miss Reese said, "Your body listens to the room listens back." If the room listened, maybe I could fight it. I grabbed the heavy music speaker and slammed it into the largest mirror. The glass didn't break, but it shuddered. The reflections jerked violently like puppets whose strings snapped for a second. Ms. Reese screamed in rage. I hit the mirror again, and this time a crack appeared. Sharp, bright, glowing like lightning. The reflections shrieked, clutching their heads. I swung again. The mirror exploded in a burst of cold wind and black dust. A violent pull sucked everything toward the broken frame. Reflections were dragged inside, swirling like torn paper in a storm. Ms. Reese tried to resist, clawing at the dance bars. "You don't understand," she screamed. "If the mirror breaks, something has to replace it." The wind intensified, and then I saw her, Lila, inside the collapsing mirror, reaching out. "Avery, don't let it take me." I reached toward her, but the shockwave threw me against the wall. When I opened my eyes, the studio was silent. All mirrors shattered. No reflections, no dancers, no Ms. Reese, just an empty room. I crawled to where Lila disappeared. Nothing. She was gone. I called 911, but when officers arrived, Northwood Art Studio looked completely abandoned. Dust everywhere, furniture covered, the dance floor cracked, as if no one had used it in years. "There's no instructor named Delaney Reese registered here," the officer told me. But I had seen her. I had danced under her direction. I had watched her feed that room. They didn't believe me. No one did. For weeks, strange things started happening at my apartment. Whenever I passed by mirrors, my reflection was delayed, watching, waiting, and at night I hear faint tapping from the bathroom mirror, like fingernails. Sometimes I hear my name. Sometimes I hear Lila crying, and sometimes I see the reflection of someone standing behind me, frozen in a dance pose. 2 nights ago, something new happened. As I brushed my teeth, the lights flickered, exactly like they did at the studio. My reflection didn't move, not even a blink. Then it smiled, not my smile, not my face, something wearing my skin. It leaned close to the glass and whispered, "The routine isn't finished." The mirror rippled, like water, and I swear something touched my hand from the other side. I dropped everything and ran. But I know this isn't over. These mirrors don't show who we are. They show what wants to replace us. And I can feel it getting closer. Every night, every reflection, every shadow, every smile that isn't mine. Story 6, I never thought a dance class could ruin my life. Not in the way injuries do, not in the way bad auditions crush you. No. What happened at Horizon Movement Academy in St. Clair, Missouri, was something darker, something that still makes my chest tighten whenever I hear the sound of ballet shoes scraping the floor. My name is Ava Layton, and for 20 years, dance was the only thing I loved without hesitation. I grew up in a tiny town outside St. Clair, raised by a single mom who worked double shifts at a diner and still made time to drive me to ballet rehearsals 3 towns over. My whole world became studios, mirrors, sweat, the dull hum of fluorescent lights buzzing over polished floors. When I turned 27, after abandoning my dream of joining a national company, I started teaching dance instead. It felt like a compromise at first, like admitting defeat. But teaching kids began healing something inside me, until Horizon Movement Academy broke something else entirely. When Horizon offered me their evening contemporary class, I accepted immediately. It was a well-loved studio with a good reputation, but the building itself had a strange, almost historical heaviness. It used to be a printing factory in the 50s, then a storage warehouse, before someone renovated it into a dance school. The building still creaked like it remembered all its former lives. My class was on the 3rd floor, but there was one room there that stayed locked no matter what, Studio 3. The owner, Marissa Hale, always avoided talking about it. "We don't use that one anymore," she said. "Bad flooring, not safe." But that explanation never sat right. The floor outside Studio 3 was perfectly smooth. No dents, no warping. And sometimes, especially late in the evening, you could hear something inside. Soft thuds, light scraping, like someone practicing alone. One night, my student Jenna said, "Miss Ava, does someone dance in that locked room?" I laughed it off, but a chill crawled up my spine. "Why do you ask?" She shrugged. "Because every time we finish class, I see someone standing behind the glass." I told her it was just reflections. It had to be. Except I'd seen it too. Everything escalated the night I stayed late to finish choreography for the winter showcase. The building was empty except for the security guard downstairs, but the third floor felt charged, like the air was waiting. As I played music on low volume, practicing a slow combination, the lights in my studio flickered, not once, not twice, but in a rhythm. Flick, pause, flick, flick, pause, flick, like someone tapping a message. I turned off the music, confused. The lights steadied, but then I heard it, muffled movement from down the hallway. The unmistakable sound of point shoes on wood. Studio 3. I stepped out into the dim hallway. The door to the forbidden room was still locked with its heavy, rusted padlock, but the tiny glass window embedded in the door was glowing faintly, as if the lights inside were on. I moved closer, heart pounding hard enough to feel in my throat. Through the window, I saw a girl. She stood perfectly still at center floor, her head lowered, her hair long and dark, covering half her face. She wore an out-of-date white leotard and pale pink tights, worn thin around the knees. She didn't move, didn't blink. I jerked back, startled. The lights inside the room snapped black. I ran. The next morning, I asked Marissa about Studio 3 again, this time without pretending I was fine. "I saw someone inside," I told her. "A girl. She looked wrong." The color drained from Marissa's face, but she tightened her jaw. "You didn't see anyone." "Marissa, I know what I saw." She stared at me for an uncomfortable amount of time, like she was deciding whether or not to lie. Finally, she sighed. "Ava, something happened here, years ago, long before I bought the academy." She hesitated, rubbing her arms like she was cold. "There was a student named Lily Grant. She was talented, gifted even, but her mother pushed her too hard, pushed her past exhaustion, past sanity. One night, Lily stayed late practicing in Studio 3. No one knows exactly how, but she slipped, fell, hit her head." Her voice wavered. "She didn't survive." I felt my stomach twist. Marissa continued. "After she died, the room never felt right. Strange things happened, students refusing to go inside, shadows moving, cold spots. We closed it off." "Why not tell anyone?" "Because no one wants to enroll their kids in a haunted dance academy." I didn't argue, I just walked away. But inside, I knew this wasn't simply a story. I had seen her. Things got worse. During class the next week, Jenna suddenly froze mid-turn and stared toward the hallway mirror. "Ava," she whispered, trembling. "She's watching again." The other students turned uneasy, glancing over their shoulders. I walked to the mirror, my reflection shifting with every step. At first, nothing seemed strange. But then, just beneath my shoulder, another figure appeared. A girl, her head tilted too far, her neck stiff, her eyes dark like bruises. I spun around, but no one was behind me. From then on, I felt her everywhere. Lights flickering in coded rhythms, cold air rushing from under Studio 3's door. Soft weeping drifting through empty hallways. But the worst was what happened the night Jenna didn't show up to class. Her mom called me crying, saying Jenna hadn't come home after going to practice something for Miss Ava. I hadn't assigned anything. Panic shot through me. I tore through the building searching for her, and when I reached the third floor, my heart nearly stopped. Studio 3's padlock, the one that had been rusted shut for decades, was lying broken on the floor. The door was open. Inside, the room was freezing, the air almost metallic. The old wooden floor was dusty except for one long set of footprints, tiny ballet kid-sized footprints leading toward the back wall. "Jenna?" I whispered, stepping inside. The door slammed behind me so hard it rattled the glass. I lunged for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I hit it, kicked it, screamed for help. Nothing worked. The room seemed to darken even though the lights were on. I felt movement behind me, slow, dragging, deliberate. When I turned, Lily stood only a few feet away. She looked far more decayed now, her leotard torn, her eyes sunken like someone who hadn't slept in years. Her feet were turned out in an unnatural position, her toes bruised, raw. She raised one hand, pointing behind me. I followed her gesture and saw Jenna crouched in the far corner, shaking violently, her face streaked with tears. "Jenna!" I shouted, rushing to her. Lily stepped between us. Her mouth opened, but no breath came out at first. Then slowly, painfully, she whispered, "Don't take her." "What do you want?" I screamed. "Why her?" Lily's head tilted, and for a second I saw something human in her face, something broken. She lifted her trembling arm and pointed toward the floor. There, carved deep into the wood, was a shape, 2 footprints, perfect fifth position, like someone had stood there for years. It hit me. She didn't want Jenna. She wanted someone to replace her. The studio had become her stage, her prison, her grave, and she wanted someone to stand where she died. "No," I whispered. "You can't have her." Lily lunged, her movements jerky but fast. Too fast. I grabbed Jenna's arm and yanked her behind me, shielding her. A cold hand clawed my shoulder, sending a stabbing, ice-like pain through my neck. I fell to my knees, vision blurring. Lily moved closer, but suddenly, somewhere behind her, the music system crackled to life. A soft piano melody. The same song I'd been choreographing the night I first saw her. Lily froze. Her head lifted as if listening. Slowly, I rose to my feet. If dance was all she remembered, maybe dance was the only thing that could reach her. I stepped forward, trembling, and began performing the same combination I had practiced that night. Long reaches, slow turns, soft footwork. Lily watched me, her expression shifting, confusion, sadness, longing. I danced closer to her, heart racing, until I stood right in front of her. Gently, I whispered, "You can rest now." Her eyes softened, her body blurred, like dust caught in sunlight. Then she faded, completely. The door behind us unlocked with a soft click. I carried Jenna out of the room, both of us sobbing. The hallway felt warm again, alive. We never spoke of what happened, not fully. But the next morning, Marissa boarded up Studio 3 permanently. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. The academy shut down a few months later after too many strange incidents scared parents away. I left St. Clair entirely, trying to start over somewhere Lily couldn't follow. But sometimes, when I'm alone in an empty studio, rehearsing after hours, I feel a coldness brush against my spine. A soft tap, tap, tap of point shoes behind me. And every mirror I practice in, I check twice, just in case she's standing there, watching, waiting, searching for someone else to take her place. Story 7. I never thought a simple dance class would change my life, or that I'd ever be afraid of mirrors again. But everything I'm about to tell you happened in a small dance studio just outside Riverview, Ohio, a place where I grew up, where nothing truly scary had ever happened before. My name is Aiden Clark. I'm 22, working 2 part-time jobs, and dancing was the only thing that made me feel like I still had control over my life. My mom had passed away 5 months earlier, and the only thing that used to calm my mind was moving to music the way she taught me when I was a kid. So when I found this new place, Rhythm Pulse Academy, now open, I signed up immediately. I should have listened to the first warning sign the moment I walked in. The building sat on an old street beside a closed-down hardware store. The lobby lights flickered as I walked in, and the hardwood floor smelled faintly like something had been burned there years ago. But the thing that stood out most was the mirrored wall, a full 20-foot section, spotless and shining, like it didn't belong in such an old building. As soon as my reflection came into view, the air around me felt colder. The instructor stepped out, a tall woman around 35 with jet black hair tied too tight. Her name was Ms. Laura Hayes. She smiled politely, but her eyes didn't smile with her. "You're Aiden," she said. "I've been waiting for you." "Waiting?" I said, confused. She ignored the question. "Class starts in 2 minutes. Don't be late next time." Only 5 students were in the class. Megan, who was shy and barely spoke. Travis, a muscular guy who looked like he took dance way too seriously. Rachel, who seemed nervous the entire time. Ben, the joker of the group. And me, Ms. Hayes, clapped sharply, making all of us jump. "Eyes on the mirror," she said. "Always. The mirror shows who you really are." We started with basic warm-ups. Everything seemed normal until the first actual routine. She turned on a slow piano track. "Follow your reflection," she said softly. Not me. At first I thought she meant copy the movement we see, but then it happened. My reflection didn't move exactly when I did. It lagged, just a split second late. Not enough for someone else to notice. Enough for me to feel something was wrong. My arms rose. The reflection's arms rose a moment after. My head turned. Its head turned slower, almost unwillingly. I blinked hard. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was imagining things. But then Megan gasped. "Did anyone else see?" she started, but Ms. Hayes snapped her fingers. "Eyes on the mirror," she barked. "If you look away, you'll break the harmony." Megan shut her mouth. We continued, but my reflection continued delaying. Half a second now, then a full second. And the worst part? Its smile. I wasn't smiling. But my reflection, it was. The next evening, Megan didn't show up. When I asked where she was, Ms. Hayes simply said, "Some people aren't ready to dance with their truth." Her voice sent chills down my spine. We resumed the routine. The mirror felt colder that night. I kept telling myself to just push through, because dance was the only good thing I had left. But halfway through the lesson, I saw something that nearly made me collapse. There were 6 reflections when only 5 of us were in the room. A girl standing behind me in the mirror. Long hair, shaking, terrified. I spun around. Nobody was there. I looked back at the mirror. She was still there, staring at me. Before I could react, Ms. Hayes grabbed my shoulder with a pressure that felt inhuman. "Focus," she whispered. "If you see them, do not acknowledge them." Them? How many were there? 2 weeks in, the routines became darker. No music, just breathing, footsteps, and this eerie hum coming from behind the mirrored wall. One Friday, Ms. Hayes asked me to stay after. "You have potential," she said, locking the studio door. My stomach tightened. I didn't want to be alone with her. "I really have to go," I started. "You see more than the others, don't you?" she interrupted. "What do you mean?" She walked to the mirror and pressed her palm against it. The surface rippled, like water. I backed away immediately. "You think these are mirrors?" she said. "They're memories. They show what was taken and what still wants to come back." Before I could speak, the mirror bulged outward violently. A hand slammed against the inside surface. A human hand. I stumbled back, my throat tightening. The hand dragged downward, leaving streaks, white, dusty streaks, like ash. Megan's face appeared behind the glass, her eyes sunken, her lips trembling soundlessly. I choked out, "Megan, what did you do to her?" Ms. Hayes didn't blink. She couldn't keep up with herself. Some dancers lose pace, and the mirror takes what is left. I ran. I didn't care about my backpack, my shoes, nothing. I ran barefoot out the door and didn't stop until I reached my apartment. I should have never returned. But a message came to my phone the next day, from Megan's number. "Help me. Please come tonight. 8 p.m. alone." I panicked. A part of me screamed it was a trap, but I went anyway. The studio lights were all off except the ones around the mirror. The others were already there. Travis, Rachel, Ben, looking scared, confused, tired. Ms. Hayes stood in the center. "It's time for the final routine," she said quietly. "We're not doing this," Travis said. "Something's wrong with this place," Ms. Hayes smiled. "You're already doing it." The door behind us clicked locked. The air pressure changed. The mirror began to darken, like a fog forming inside the glass. Our reflection stayed clear, too clear. Then they stepped forward, out of sync, not matching us at all now, moving closer to the surface. Ben shouted, "I'm not doing this!" and tried running to the door. His reflection grabbed him first. A hand shot out of the mirror, real, cold, human, and yanked him inside. Ben's scream echoed, then cut off abruptly. The mirror went still. His reflection smiled at us from inside. I wanted to run, but the floor felt like glue. Rachel sobbed. Travis cursed under his breath. Ms. Hayes watched calmly like she was observing a performance she'd choreographed. "You're next, Aiden," she said softly. "The mirror wants the ones who've suffered the most, the ones whose minds are fragile. You are perfect." My chest tightened, my knees weakened. My reflection stepped forward, closer, closer, its eyes too wide, its movements jerky, broken. I whispered, "You're not me?" It tilted its head, cracking like bones misaligned. Then I remembered something, what Ms. Hayes said on the first day. Follow your reflection. If the reflection wanted me, maybe doing the opposite would break the connection. I took a deep breath, and I turned my back to the mirror. Ms. Hayes screamed, "No!" The glass behind me shattered loudly. Something icy brushed my shoulder, trying to grab me. I kept moving backward, away from the mirror, toward the door. "Everyone!" I yelled. "Don't look at your reflections. Turn around." Travis and Rachel hesitated, then turned their backs too. The mirror started cracking violently. Dozens of hands reached out, clawing at the air, screaming, begging, shrieking. The studio lights burst. Ms. Hayes lunged toward me, grabbing my arm. "You can't leave," she cried. "You belong to them." I shoved her away with all the strength I had. She stumbled backward, straight into the mirror. The hands dragged her inside instantly. Her scream was the loudest of all. The mirror swallowed her whole. And then, silence. The mirror went pitch black. We unlocked the door and ran into the night. The police came. The studio was sealed. They never found Ms. Hayes. They never believed what we told them. The mirror was removed and taken to some evidence facility. But something happened last week. I was walking past a store window at night. I saw my reflection. It didn't move when I did. It just smiled. A slow, unnatural, knowing smile. I think the mirror didn't stay in that studio. I think it followed me. Or maybe it's already replacing me. Every day it moves a little differently. Every day the delay grows. And every day I feel less like myself. If someday I disappear, just know I didn't walk away. I was pulled back in. Story 8. I never thought a dance studio could feel haunted. When I first moved to Ridgewood, Oregon, I wasn't expecting much. I had come from a rough few years, my mom's passing, a breakup I still wasn't fully healed from, and a constant sense that life was moving ahead without me. Dance used to be the one thing that kept me grounded. So when I saw an old building downtown with a fading sign that read, Harper Street Dance Conservatory, something inside me pulled. It didn't look like a regular studio. Brick walls chipped with age, windows covered with black curtains, and a wooden door that creaked even in the wind. But back then, I just needed a fresh start. Something that made me feel alive again. I should have listened to the strange chill I felt the first time I stepped inside. Inside, the studio looked older than I expected. The hardwood floor was worn, but polished like someone had spent hours making sure it gleamed. Old ballet bars lined the mirrored wall, mirrors that stretched from end to end. The air smelled faintly of cedar and something sour I couldn't place. The instructor, Marielle Dawson, greeted me with a tight smile. She looked too calm, like someone who had seen too much and learned not to talk about it. "You must be Ivy," she said. "Yes, first class today." Her eyes flicked to the mirror behind me, then back. "You'll fit in just fine." Something about the way she said it didn't feel like reassurance. It felt like a warning wrapped inside a compliment. There were 5 other students: Alyssa, cheerful and talkative; Brooke, shy and quiet; Daniel, the only male dancer; Morgan, who barely smiled; Tessa, the studio's star dancer. When class began, everything felt normal until the music started. That's when the floor moved. Not like vibrating from bass, not like settling wood, It shifted, almost like it was breathing under my feet. I thought it was just nerves or imagination. But then Alyssa whispered next to me, "Did you feel that?" I nodded slowly. Marielle clapped her hands sharply. "Focus on your form. Distractions ruin discipline." Her eyes darted to the floor again. On the second week, I experienced something I still struggle to explain. We were practicing across the floor, simple pirouettes, when I caught sight of something in the mirror. At first it was just me, but as I turned I noticed that my reflection lagged. A split-second delay, like a video buffering. My breath caught. I blinked hard. The reflection blinked after me. Out of sync. I stumbled mid-turn. Marielle snapped, "Ivy, keep your balance." I pointed at the mirror. "Something's wrong." Before I finished, the reflection suddenly aligned again, copying me perfectly. Everyone looked at me like I had imagined it, but Brooke leaned closer, whispering so quietly only I could hear. "You saw it too? The mirror doesn't always follow." Her voice cracked. I felt goosebumps spread over my arms. That was the first time someone confirmed it wasn't just me. As weeks passed, the studio's rules started to feel controlling. No one enters before 7 p.m. No one leaves alone after 9 p.m. Never stand still on the studio floor. Always keep moving. Never under any circumstances look at the mirrors in complete silence. When I asked why, Marielle looked pale. "The building has history," she whispered. "Just follow the rules." But Daniel wasn't the type to follow anything blindly. One night he stayed still on the floor during break. Just stood there checking his phone. The lights flickered. The wood beneath him rippled like water. He jumped back. "What the hell was that?" Marielle rushed forward. "You were standing still, I told you." Daniel shoved past her. "I'm done with this insane place." We didn't see him again. Marielle claimed he dropped out, but Alyssa swore she saw his car parked behind the studio the next morning. Abandoned, keys on the seat. One Thursday, our class ran late. Around 9:12 p.m., the music cut suddenly, leaving the room in dead silence. All of us froze instinctively. The mirrors turned pitch black, not reflective, black, like the darkness swallowed everything behind them. Brooke screamed. Marielle yelled, "Don't look at them! Keep moving!" We started stepping, pacing, anything to avoid standing still. But the floor began to move again, this time violently. Wooden boards rippled under us like waves. Morgan tripped, sliding across the floor with a terrified cry. From the mirrors came a sound, something like fingernails scraping glass from the inside. We backed away from the wall. Tessa pointed with shaking hands. "There's someone inside the mirror." I looked despite Marielle's warnings. In the black surface, silhouettes writhed beneath the glass. Arms pressed outward, hands scraped for escape, faces blurred like smudged charcoal desperately pushing to the surface. One face was clearer than the rest. Daniel. His mouth opened in a silent scream. Brooke fainted. Alyssa sobbed uncontrollably. The floorboards buckled, bowing upward as if something was trying to break through. Marielle grabbed my wrist. "We need to go! Now!" But the door wouldn't open. The handle twisted uselessly. Behind us, a long crack split across the mirror from end to end. Something was coming out. Marielle finally broke. "This studio wasn't built for teaching," she said, voice trembling. "It was built to contain something." "What?" I shouted. "The original owner, Evelyn Harper, believed movement trapped spirits. She performed rituals here, used the mirrors as prisons, the floor as a barrier." Brooke, pale and shaking, whispered, "You're saying those things are spirits?" Marielle shook her head slowly. "No, they're the ones who broke the rules, the ones who stood still, the ones who stared at the mirrors in silence. The studio takes them." My stomach dropped. "I don't want to die here," Morgan sobbed. "We won't." Marielle's voice hardened. "But we have to keep moving. As long as we move, we stay ourselves." The crack in the mirror split wider. A hand pushed through, pale, too long, jointed wrong. The wooden floor surged upward violently, knocking Morgan off her feet. Before we could pull her up, the board swallowed her leg. She screamed, clawing at the ground. I grabbed her arm. Alyssa grabbed the other. But the floor pulled. Something below dragged her with impossible strength. Her fingers slipped from mine. She disappeared beneath us. Alyssa collapsed, sobbing hysterically. The mirror exploded outward in a shower of black glass dust. Shapes crawled out, distorted figures, like silhouettes without faces, moving in jagged motions. But they weren't walking. They were dancing. Jerky, broken, wrong. Marielle took a deep breath. Run! We sprinted across the room as the shapes staggered toward us. The floor felt alive under our feet, writhing, twisting, trying to grab us. Alyssa tripped, and I grabbed her just in time. Brooke was barely conscious but followed us, trembling violently. By some miracle, the front door suddenly burst open. Cold night air rushed in. We ran until our lungs burned. When I looked back, the studio lights flickered one last time. Then everything went dark. The police arrived. They found no mirrors inside, no polished wooden floor, nothing but an empty, rotting building with cement floors covered in dust. They looked at us like we were crazy. Daniel, Morgan, they were never found. Marielle moved away the next morning without telling anyone. Alyssa refuses to even walk near Harper Street. Brooke quit dancing entirely. As for me, I still dance. But sometimes, in certain studios, I swear I feel the floor shifting. Just a little, like something beneath it remembers me. And every time I pass a mirror, I walk faster. Because once, just once, I saw my reflection blink a full second late. It smiled when I didn't.